Haram violence in the Lake Chad Basin has displaced 1.4 million children and left at least 1 million others still trapped in hard-to-reach areas. Well, released ahead of the UN Summit on Refugees and Migrants set for September 19th, Children on the Move and Those Left Behind looks at the impact of the insurgency on children in the Lake Chad Basin, an area that comprises parts of Nigeria, Niger, Cameroon and Chad. Well, Simon Ingram is the Senior Communications Advisor at UNICEF Brussels. We chat to him now via Skype. Good afternoon, Simon. Always a pleasure having you on the SABC News Desk.
Thank you for having me.
Simon, conflict, poverty and climate change all coming to a head in this part of the world. Just give us a sense of the magnitude and scale of this crisis right now.
Well, it is enormous. As you mentioned, it spans across vast areas of 4 countries in West Africa. And you were reporting on your show just now about the situation in South Sudan. If anything, the scale of what is happening in the Lake Chad area is even larger, but probably less recognized because it is hardly ever reported. Access to it has become so difficult. But essentially the situation now is we've got something like 2.6 million people who've been forced from their homes because of the spiral of violence triggered by the Boko Haram group. And of that 2.6 million, well over half are children. So this is truly a children's crisis in the heart of Africa.
Simon, just speak to us very quickly about the multiple protection risks children face while fleeing violence of this nature.
Well, I mean, it's the obvious ones. When children are on the move, they're at risk from everything, really. The dangers of the fact that they're not in their home communities, they're not surrounded necessarily by loved ones. Many children get separated from families in their rush to flee whatever danger it is that they're trying to escape from. And also because, of course, there are people who are looking to prey on them and take them, kidnap them, and subject them to all sorts of abuse and torture and exploitation. So it's an incredibly dangerous situation. And one of the main pieces of work that UNICEF can do is to provide spaces and opportunities where children can actually simply find that physical safety in such dangerous times.
Simon, why is it been so difficult to keep a children's crisis of this magnitude, like you say, high on the global migration and displacement agenda? Because clearly for now it remains one of the world's most neglected. Now, one point you mentioned is that it's difficult to report on a crisis of this nature because it's difficult to access these hard-to-reach areas. But is it also being overshadowed by Europe's migration crisis as well?
I think inevitably it has to some extent. It's because we don't have the steady flow of images coming out of Lake Chad that we do out of the Mediterranean, for example. But the very fact that we have got this very important global summit taking place in New York, organized by the United Nations and by President Obama, this will be really an opportunity to shed light on the global aspect of migration and displacement, and the fact that it isn't only Europe which finds itself confronting the challenge that it poses. But of course, it is all the more important that West Africa is put in the spotlight because the situation there is so dire. This is an incredibly poor and impoverished part of the world, even without the phenomenon of Boko Haram. And it's that which makes the plight of the children in this region so desperate.
Simon Ingram, the UNICEF Senior Communications Advisor, joining us via Skype from Brussels there. Thank you for your time on the SABC News.